Welcome to Deep Thought. Culture can influence biology. And what I mean by biology is, how our bodies form, how our bodies react to the environment. See, that's one of the things when we look at how people are built, how people get sick. A big part is the environment. For example, the culture, with the environment, which is influenced by the culture, really created by the culture. Now, I've talked before how, biology can create culture. People do stuff according to their biological urges. But there's also a lot of artificial creation out there through different ways. Like, I give you an example of food. Food is very cultural. You learn a lot about any culture by what they eat. Now, say you have two cultures. You have one culturally, they eat a lot of meat. And especially these days with so many things injected into the meat to the point they have to tell you when something doesn't have an injection. That can affect you because of digestion, putting on weight, maybe introducing like more sugar to your system than it can handle. And of course that, weight gain, especially in the United States, 20 as a culture more obese than 20 years ago. But a lot of that is the food and activity and all of that. All of those things are cultural. Like, you have more people are not as active. Kids don't go outside like they used to, but again, that's part of the culture when you have a lot of stuff happening indoors. People can watch TV. They don't have to go to the movies. They don't have to go to like a store and pick up the tapes. They just sit there and click. Don't have to move around, but that's a cultural thing. And then, I talked about the meat, but then you have a growing vegan population who as a group tend to be healthier because they're eating on a different level. They're eating better foods. And then you have a holistic population, they ingest more natural products. Even if they're sick, they might use a more natural product. And then if you look at some other things, if culture, like one thing in this culture is go, go, go. A lot of people have stress and everything. But if you're in a culture or a subculture where it's not as stressful, it's more easygoing, you don't have that same level of stress. Like, the biggest cause of stress is sickness. The biggest cause of sickness is stress, rather. They all connect. And I remember reading in one of the books, I ain't put any books out, but it was Andrew Yang, one of the founders of the new Ford Party. And I remember what he was saying about maybe some people who are in a poor neighborhood, they're more stressed out. They're sicker because they're more stressed out, they're more worried. But that's a cultural thing versus someone who's in a rich neighborhood. They don't have to worry about stuff. In fact, I've talked about that before on here, how you can tell a lot about someone's class or get a clue just by how they look. Literally, how they look. And what's that affected by? Their culture. Like, if you had twins, one is raised in, they split apart at birth. One is raised in a poor neighborhood, one is raised in a richer neighborhood. You'll see the basic resemblance, you bring them together, but then one might be more stressed out. They came up in an environment where they look around, they might have to like fight a bit more, or, just totally stressed. They could be, they might look older, even though they generally look the same as the other one that grew up in a totally stress-free neighborhood. That's very important because one of the things I would say is, if you want to change anything, you got to change the culture. And indeed, not to get too deep into politics, but that's what a lot of these culture wars are about. Because people understand how accepting certain things or allowing certain things or blocking certain things can influence people on a deeper level. And it's a lot. Because one thing about culture, you have forces that really shape culture. Like 3 primary forces shape culture. 3 primary and general, because of course you can break those down even further. The government, and the government through laws, and also how children are taught. That shapes a culture, because it says, okay, this is important, this isn't, this law says you can do that, it doesn't. Like, let me use an example there. During the midterms, one ballot measure that was on the ballot of many states was the allowance of recreational marijuana. Now, you already have several states that do that now, but during the election, like I'm in the state of Maryland, people voted for it. I forgot the other state, but then there were a couple states people didn't. And I've noticed in the places that allow it, it's a different relaxed atmosphere. And in fact, speaking of that cultural thing, I remember when I was out in California, because, you know, second home, San Diego. I noticed people were more relaxed, but part of the culture out there is also the beaches and everything, and warm weather all year round. So, I mean, it's just like, oh, okay, all right. You know, just the attitude of people. But then people more relaxed, they're not as sick, they're not as stressed out. So that's very important. And you know, I was talking about the government, that's one way. Religion affects culture. If you have an area where it's highly religious and maybe as a tenet of the religion, no premarital sex, even though people still have it, but there's maybe, you know, a bit more repression against it, people are going to behave a certain way. They're going to dress a certain way because they're not going to dress in a manner to draw sexual attention. And that's a cultural thing. But then you get another culture, another subsection where it's not very religious. That's why, like, you get some people from poor communities where religion isn't as strong and they tend to be looser sexually. But you get more middle class environments where there's more order, is not as sexually open. But that's still culture. The people are generally the same. The people are the same. It's not just like, oh, I'm gonna be this way. And I notice I say general because there's always gonna be exceptions every place. And then media. What does the media do? The media influences culture. The media influences, you know, what people will wear, what they won't wear, what people will do. Think about it. The media sells a lot. It culturally says, hey, you gotta have these perfectly white teeth. Oh, here's the product for it. You need to have hair instead of just, if it's coming out, it's just coming out. Oh, here's the product for it. You know? Here's the product, here's the thing. Here's the political candidates we want you to support. You know, there's so many things. It's so many things. Because one of the things with the media, they want you to live a certain lifestyle because their products feed that lifestyle, make money off of it. So they need you to do it. In fact, with advertising, people don't realize part of advertising is to get people to buy stuff they wouldn't normally want to get. But isn't that influencing it? And then that affects the biology, because what if that product ain't good for your body? See how that works? See how that works? So, and ultimately, everything's ultimately holistic. And it's something, I want y'all to think about that. You know, I throw out stuff here for y'all to think about. To really think about. Think about times you might have changed your diet a bit and you start feeling better. That's influencing your biology. But then much food is connected to it. Fast foods, you know, going to certain things depending on your region, eating certain foods. All of that's together. And that can affect who you physically, your biology. Indeed, there's some people saying, you know, questioning like the growing infertility. How much is affected by these chemicals out here? And how much of that is affected by just the culture in general? Something to think about. Anyway, that's all I have for today. I want everybody to think about everything I just said. Peace and blessings.